Good morning, Karim. Thank you for joining me this morning. I feel like there is a ton to talk about as we come into the end of the week. One of the big things is that Monday we'll be emailing the entire company to connect them with an application and the resources and information to apply for the PPP CARES Act. So real estate agents do fall under that act. Today was the deadline for businesses, and then independent contractors, self-employed
Not the deadline,
folks
but the first day to apply.
is, yeah, or the first day to apply. And the first day to apply for independent contractors is next Friday. And and I just want agents to understand that it is up to $100,000 in wages. It's 2.5 months of wages. So agents right now can be getting their 1099s together from the previous year. You don't have to have filed taxes already or anything, but just have your 1099s together for your previous year and speak with your banker, because the benefit for an agent, the max benefit is $21,000. So that's a considerable amount of money. And I'm hoping that everyone in our community will try and take advantage of that.
I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
I believe I'm an independent contractor through Living Room, but I file as an S Corp and I have an employee on payroll. And then, do you know?
Then you want to go ahead and connect with your banker, and you're probably going to be able to qualify under the Company Act, the PPP CARES Act for companies, because not only will you get 2.5 months up to $100,000 in salary covered for yourself if you earned $100,000 or more last year, but you'll also get 2.5 times payroll for your employee. So if you have an employee that, for a lot of agents, their employees are on independent contractor status, those independent contractors are likely going to need to apply themselves because they're independent contractors. And agents have to apply themselves because they're independent contractors of Living Room, but Living Room and our staff.
But I think a couple other people, I think Tracy might do this too, but a couple other people file as an S Corp with and they're their sole employee.
Yep. So they are going to, so make sure you contact your banker and get your 1099s in order, or get your tax returns in order. I guess that would be your statements of income for the last year and the payroll that you paid the previous year for your employee. And it's up to 2.5 months of pay.
Yep. I'm just the most difficult piece of information for me to figure out yet, and I hopefully will be able to share it with the community when I figure it out. I'm hoping to today, is whether or not as an S Corp, I file as an S Corp with one employee, which is me. I have payroll for me. The other staff that I have, the 3 people on my staff, are all, I believe, 1099s just of Living Room. So I will not be claiming for them. They will be able to claim for themselves.
Yep.
But as an S Corp, do I file today or do I wait next week? And I think that I file today.
I believe you can file today.
But it's, again, the compensation is going to be basically no different. It's just that I filed today as an S Corp. I apply today as an S Corp rather than next week as an IC, but I'm not sure that that's right yet.
Yep. And I think mainly what the banks are trying to do is just manage the flow of deals coming in. And I think we mentioned this before in the last call, that the banks are getting paid 5% to administer all of these funds. So they are, why are banks doing this? Why are they offering so much help right now? Is because we're all going to become customers of those banks, and it benefits them to make sure that money gets distributed to anyone applying. Yeah. So that was huge. The other huge thing that happened, of course, was getting word that Homeland Security, the department, so interesting, like to be, it is tickled me or amused me, I think, to some point, that the Bureau of Home Security has anything to do with real estate right now. But anyway, Homeland Security has issued that we're an essential service. So that also meant that we got clear guidelines about how we can move forward. And it really actually opened up the market a little more than I was anticipating that we'd be looking at for the next couple of months. And then the other big piece of news for the state of Oregon, at least, is that it seems that we're doing a better job than expected of flattening the curve. We have less cases, people are staying at home, and the health of the community has been pretty well secured. So all of these in combination, it's interesting as we got all of this good news. I also feel like maybe it's because we've had some time to rest. Maybe some of this is settled in. Some of this is good news, is it's left me with more questions about the market, because we had a frenzy coming into this of people just reacting. And now that people are starting to get their bearings and digesting information, I have felt like the market this week felt much different than it has the few weeks coming into that. I have some stats just to share, and I'd love to hear about what you experienced, this week. So a recap of some of the things is that we had 240 new listings on the market this week, 68 of them back on market, sale falls that came back on the market, 168 pending, withdrawn 73. It's quite a few, actually.
A lot of withdrawals, yeah.
A lot of withdrawals, like holding back and seeing what happens. So I'm thinking we're going to see some more inventory come on now as people realize, okay, the market can continue somewhat normally. It's different, but somewhat normally in coming back on. Canceled 48 and then sold 173. And then some key takeaways that I had was, residential home sales in Portland are actually up 4.8% over last year. So selling more homes than last year by almost 5%. And the average sales price was up an average of 3.6% over the three markets compared to 2019. Between the three markets that we are in, which is Portland, Vancouver, and the coast, Vancouver experienced the largest jump in sale prices. And then average days on market is down across the board in comparison to Q1 2019. So inventory is moving 5 days faster in the city of Portland than it was a year ago. And a year ago, we also had very low inventory and a pretty healthy buyer pipeline and buyers in there, but still, we're still down 5 days. 5 days on the market this quarter. And then list prices are spot on. Home prices are selling for 99.58% of the list price, pretty much meaning just, whatever price, price well is selling. So all of that together, if we were looking at this outside of the context of COVID, we would be like, what an incredible spring.
Yep.
And so, but I'm sure that you as an agent are dealing with so much insecurity, conversations are longer, hours are longer. And what did your team see this week?
So here's what I pulled up, because I think that to address a couple of the questions that were going around earlier from, I think Jake and Shannon both made this sentiment. I have the same thought, which is like, this is a super dynamic and volatile market. That's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
We can look at like month to month, year over year, and there's not going to be all that much change. And the question is, in 30 days, what does that 30 days look like? What does the next 30 days look like? That's the question we're all trying to answer. And it is a very, very, very difficult market to measure that. I think we can only see indicators. One of the most important indicators is, what are everyone's buyers doing? This is the thing. Like, if we knew, if everybody in our company and everybody in every other company all posted some spreadsheet that said, here's how many buyers we have, here's how many just got into contract, here's how many are active, here's how many have left the market, we would have a measure. So like, what is the rate of new buyers coming in? And what is the rate of current buyers remaining?
And that would only really be relevant if everyone had stats from the year before as well, because is that different than last spring, than this spring? Is the rate of buyers you have coming on, what does that really
relative rate of buyers? That's right. Relative rate of buyers. So the research, so generally speaking, what I've done for research around those specific questions is talk to several lenders. Frequently, I'm speaking to them, and about loan programs and such, but also about like, what is your rate of incoming buyers? And I do this a lot. I'll talk to a couple of our lenders, through the normal year. I'll do this a lot to say, like, like January 15th, like, hey, we haven't really had any new buyer meetings yet. Are you guys getting the calls? In other words, they're a really good measure of what's happening. They're a good measure of our coming pipeline or our current pipeline. And applications for buyers certainly are down.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same rate as we would normally see.
Mm-hmm.
There are some continuing.
Mm-hmm.
It is the general sentiment is certainly it's down, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not down to zero, but it's nowhere near the rate that we would normally see at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Will that shift in the next 2 weeks? Will Homeland Security that opens up opens up business and says, here's our kind of new temporary normal? Will the rate of infections being we have some relative successes around. It's hard to talk about that stuff in terms of numbers, but like,
Well, with the
but a
PPP
relative
program,
success,
a
yeah,
lot of people going back to work, a lot of people that were temporarily laid off when it looked like there wasn't going to be any safety nets, and
right.
small businesses were
How
contracting.
many of these people will go back to work, and how
Yeah.
rapidly will people return to the market, whether it's
Yeah.
post-COVID or sooner, and hopefully
Yeah.
sooner, and whatever,
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah.
These are the questions we're trying to answer, and we just don't know. But there are less per mortgage lenders. And when I look at my buyers, our pipeline of buyers is and not the rate of growth right now. We have had 2 new buyer meetings in the last week and a half, and they both have an interest in getting in the market, motivation, real money, et cetera, and both are unable to cross the initial sort of physical need bridge to get to be ready to buy a house, because one of them is from out of town. They need to know some neighborhoods. The other one is really, really new and need to like tour a bunch of houses. So Jess is doing an amazing job of educating them and getting all that there. Yeah. But it's likely that both of them are like, we really need to get to physical world before we can get there. So those are our new buyers. They're real, and they're probably what we would call a post-COVID buyer, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe there's a normalcy that sets in a month or something like that that's different, or next week or whatever.
Yeah.
But very likely they're a post-COVID. Of our in pipeline buyers that are like, we have a list of, maybe 20 or whatever. We basically have like 1 or 2 that are continuing now, and the rest are what we would call a post-COVID buyer. They're on hold.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean that they're less good buyers? That they're not, these are the people that we'd be touching base with on a bi-weekly basis right now, or twice a week or once a week, and developing. And that development's on hold, and for very real reasons. Some of them have questions about their jobs. Some of them questions about their personal finances. Their whatever. It's all money and COVID based. From a listing standpoint, I have a couple more coming up. Maybe we're educating them and developing them each week. We're doing a little bit less in the way of preparation, in terms of like, repairing little bits here and there and stuff, because people aren't going to spend quite as much time at the house. So those, needed repairs. Those are happening. But like, the little button up stuff here and there, change a light fixture, a little bit less in the way of those things.
It makes sense to be very conscious of your budget right now as someone that's going on the market. Just that doing what you need to do to get on the market, but being very conservative with spend, because I actually think less sellers may go on the market, which could increase demand for those houses. But if it doesn't happen, you just want to be sure that you feel comfortable holding out on what you spent until you return to a post-COVID market. It makes absolute sense.
In our, we have 1 listing that is in delay mode because the buyer lost financing and got a new buyer or a new lender. So it's in a relatively long extension mode. It is progressing 1 step at a time. There's some, it's one of those where you're like, I'm 75% sure it'll work.
Yeah. Most of the listings we've had in the office have closed with very little issues. Like most things are closing as normal.
So there's that one. Then there's one that closed. It's one that's closing today, and this is like $1 million plus. There's one that is in contract with 2 offers. There's one that is on the market that is getting decent showings, not incredible showings, but decent showings. And I think it would have gotten more for sure. My sense of this one is that the showing count is down. There's another one we have in contract in a sort of a special case, and there is some financing fumbling about the buyer, but it's working itself out.
Yeah.
And then we have one where we got 8. We just closed another one just at the end. What was it? End of last week. Closed successfully. Yeah, on time.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
had today is an on-time close. We have one then that I wrote about briefly, which is it was eight offers. We went back to second best buyer after the first one terminated due to COVID related issues after home inspections, and one of the agents from Living Room that had written was already in contract on something else. 2 other agents were in contract on something else. Another agent at Living Room couldn't get it together this time because of COVID related financing. And then there's a couple others that we're talking to. So it's like not your average 8 offer sale fail. There's 4 I guess 4 of 8 having COVID related issues. So
Yeah.
these are data points. This is
Yeah.
this is
That was
real.
something I was expecting to see actually, is as you had sale files that sellers would be seriously considering backup offers and going back to previous offers that maybe they hadn't given as much weight to, knowing that they had serious buyers. So I think some of this is good news for buyers, especially some of these buyers that have been in, I mean, sure, some of these buyers have been in some of those 15 offer situations, 20 offer situations, 8 offer situations, and knowing that in position 3 or 4, you may have your chance to step
You
up
may
and
have a good shot. That's right. And
put a deal together.
I will also say that also speaks to less buyer demand.
Yeah.
And that is a real thing right now. And I just want to be really clear that everything that I've heard from lenders and from my pipeline and who we've talked to and what our 20-person pipeline, which is a pretty good one. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. 3/4 are on hold temporarily. Now, how long they're on hold is a question.
Yeah. So what would you say to agents that, what should we be doing to I think one, there's a lot of confusing information out there. What is the market doing? Can I actually go inside a house right now? Can I buy? Am I going to be eligible for financing? What is that? So for agents, what would you recommend that they do to start? What activities to do?
I don't know what other people should do.
Yeah.
I'm not one to give advice, but I do know what I have been doing.
Yeah. What are you doing?
What I have been doing is this week specifically, I worked tirelessly on a kind of a resource guide newsletter to my client base. And
it was amazing. It was really beautiful.
I appreciate that. And I got a lot of good feedback from clients, and I got a few people asking me additional questions, which was what I was hopeful for. I want to be placed as the advocate. To go back to that humility point we were talking about last week, within a world of 8 billion people, within a marketplace of 8 billion now, it's not even a world anymore. It's a single marketplace. We have a society of 8 billion. It's never happened before in the history of the fucking universe.
Yeah.
And maybe, I don't know about other planets. There might be a planet with 400 trillion. But with 8 billion people in a society, there are a lot of rice farmers and window installers and bookmakers. And it actually does now take sort of one of each. It takes everybody doing a little something.
Yeah.
And if you feel, not you, but if one feels that the job that they are engaged in is one that exploits their strengths pretty well, and it's a job in which they can contribute pretty well in that little tiny circle that is, in my instance, in that little tiny circle that is real estate, if I think I can contribute pretty well in that thing, then there's a humility to just be a fucking worker among workers. Just show up for the thing you do today and do the best you can. So what I did was put together a newsletter. It's called A Letter from Karim or something like that. And I've got a table of contents because there's 15 sections that I wanted to address. Federal stimulus, mortgage relief, foreclosure moratorium, student loans, a section for renters, housing bureau, utilities, IRS, current market, safety practices, government ordinances, and CDC info. And I got a bunch of links in there bunch of little stuff, like a little few things that I've learned, a few things I've heard, some good links to articles, stuff like that. And I put it together and send it out to my database. And I just almost never email my entire database. It's like 700, 800, whatever it is, people
Yeah.
receive this email from me. And I've gotten, you know, more than a handful of really positive responses. So that establishes me as an advocate. So that's the networking piece and the business piece. It gives
Yeah.
me something to do where I feel useful. It
Yeah.
teaches me something. I learned a lot through the process of putting it together.
Yeah.
It's all helpful.
Yeah. You can be a service.
It took a lot of time this week to do it, and
Yeah.
it was worth doing. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
With regards to my clients that are in the pipeline, where I've given you, and I CC'd you on some of these, I did like a virus in real estate, like I did like eight episodes or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
eight letters to listings that are in the pipeline. So it's just like all education and service. And if I can be in service, then I'm fine. Then I'm like purposeful, you know, I'm like really
Yeah.
driven by that.
Yeah, that reminds me, yeah, I hadn't thought about this in a while, but I get asked all the time when I started Living Room, how did you recruit agents? Because at the time it was the deep recession. And so I couldn't recruit agents based on sales volume because nobody was selling anything. So that wasn't an indication of any type of measurement of success. So I look for people that were in service, that were giving back and volunteering, because I know that when you give of yourself into your community comes back and
Yep.
supports you. And one of the things that I've been finding a lot of meaning in doing and has helped keep me engaged and busy and understanding, my place in the community and our business place in the community, is I've been trying to reach out to all the small businesses that surround the Living Room offices, introducing myself and connecting them with the resources that I have available through my participation in the Entrepreneurs Organization, and like hooking them up with things like, did you know that you can apply for the CARES Act that opens today? Did you know that there's these resources for you? And just checking
Yep.
in and saying,
Yep.
how are you doing? Because Living Room, we intend to have our doors back open and the lights back on, and we'd love to see your lights back on and you there too. Like, we are all in this together, and it's really important that we're helping each other all get through this. So it's a good reminder.
Yep.
Well, Karim, I don't want to take any more time. I know today's got to be busy. It's Friday and we're going into another busy weekend. But I really appreciate you coming and sharing, and good luck to you and your
And you said
clients.
you're sharing the PPP with agents on Monday. That's great. I was talking to my team
Yep.
about that stuff this week, and so that'll be really.
Yep. So Stephanie has all the information that they need to apply, the resources, links, and also her and Abby will be available to resend agents copies of their 1099s if they've misplaced them or don't have them on file. So we're going to be assisting all our agents through that and doing the best that we can to make sure that in 2.5 months we are all have that runway to continue into our summer season.
Yep.
Yeah.
Be of service. Stay strong and be of service.
Thank you. Love you. Thank you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.